I found this fascinating. So Brandon Thurston had posted a chart from back in 98, 99, so back when, and it was showing the ratings year over year or month over month, and like all the numbers were like in the green for both for Raw for WWE programming and our programming, and then like all that green stuff. Then all of a sudden you saw, okay, now there's two new shows, Thunder and SmackDown. But there was so much positive ratings going into that. It's like, well, we need more programming. You look at the charts for like AEW, and there was like red, yellow, like going down, and then all of a sudden they wanted another show at
Yeah,
Collision, and I was like, that's weird. It's like
it's
the
different,
trend
right?
is like completely right, completely different trend. What'd you think about that?
I mean, I said long, long before Tony even had a second show that if I were Tony, based on that I went through, I would want to make sure my A show, my foundation, is absolutely as strong as it can be before I added anything on top of that. It's no different than building a house, and starting to put your walls up before you got your foundation in. Collapse eventually. You can keep building and you can keep throwing up walls and throw in some pummeling, throw in some electricity. But if your foundation isn't in the ground and isn't correct, eventually it's going to collapse. And when Tony, or I shouldn't say Tony's just doing what the network asked him to do, presumably. But for the network to want more shows when that foundational show is actually losing audience, and then you're asking your provider, your television partner, in this case, AEW, to produce more content, I don't know, man. I don't know that that's that smart. We'll see. Maybe there's a reason for it.
Do you
Maybe
know
they
any? Do
wanted to see what AEW is capable of.
you know any
I
people
don't
that
know.
are running Warner Brothers, the Warner Brothers Discovery? Do you know any of those people now that like you used to work with the executives back in the day, like the
Mm.
people in those positions now? Are you familiar with any of them?
I mean, I know David. I don't know him personally, but I know of David Zasloff, and I've done business at Discovery when David Zasloff was the head of the company. I may have interfaced with him, probably not. Maybe 10 years ago I did when he was more in program development, but I don't know any of them personally.
That's the thing, because I'm looking at this like we always look at it from the wrestling bubble, and I'm looking at maybe these people running that network just they're not clued in. Like maybe they're
Well,
not very good at what they're doing, because like you said, like you look at those trends and they want a new show, and like we're puzzled.
yeah,
Like
but Conan, there's a lot of things we don't know that's going on in the world of television, and probably strategies that wouldn't have made sense 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, certainly 20 or 30 years ago, that actually makes sense today because television is getting killed. Television is a television is going to be the rotary phone in the next 10 years. It's changing so rapidly.
I
And because of that change and the pressure that change puts on networks, cable networks especially, they're willing to do things and try things that didn't make sense a couple of years ago. There's just so much going on that we don't know and don't understand.
well, cable television programming stinks. I can't really name a show that I ask friends, I ask people, what do you watch on cable? And besides wrestling, I can't find anybody that watches anything on cable. Like the
It's news
programming
and
get
news and sports primarily, but even a
that's
lot
it.
of that,
Beyond that, I don't even consider
I
that.
can get that on my Roku.
Right. So
Right.
it's like where everything's into the streaming now, and it's like maybe that's why wrestling, because it still gets solid numbers, because everybody brags at you, we're number one on cable this for the night. Like,
In the
okay,
demo.
the demo. Well, that's the thing, but I'm like, that's kind of like you're accepting the low standard of just being number one in a sea of like no competition, but like
Yeah, you're
your
you're you're the biggest small
right,
fish in the little pond.
right, but your show is underperforming. And if you're just accepting like, okay, but we were number one on cable, but you're not addressing the reasons that you're underperforming, it's like the product, the fans are suffering from an underwhelming product, and they're just not watching it anymore. And I think if like the wrestling media was a little bit harder on them when they're not when they're underperforming, instead of kind of like celebrating little wins here and there that don't really mean anything in the big picture, that I think the product would be better
Why?
for them.
Why would that pressure? Let's assume you're right. Why would the wrestling media, in the Twitter or social media universe that listens to them, why would them being negative about the product have any positive impact on it?
Well, because I see a guy like Tony when he's like, this is my dream was becoming, celebrating getting Booker of the Year, and I'm like, dude, you've lost 25% of your audience from the time you guys have started, and like you're celebrating getting Booker of the Year, and like that's not a good standard of success.
No,
You know what
I
I'm saying?
agree.
So I'm saying like but everybody applauds that because that's all the dirt sheet community that he feeds into and stuff. And I'm just like, he just like seems like the type of guy that just likes to hear good things about his show.
Well,
And
that doesn't make
mean,
him horrible,
no,
by the way.
but that's all they do. And when
I
you're,
get
but
it.
the show kind of suffers in the numbers. That's the way that's my perspective. So
No, I get it. I get frustrated with the way the show is covered by some people, not by all people. And look, fans, it's a little bit like politics, right? When AEW came out, there was such a rabid fan base. Everybody wanted to see us succeed. There was all this goodwill. They got over invested in it. They became tribal. And by the way, a lot of that is because of Tony Khan and a lot of the top talent in AEW, including our good friend Chris Jericho, who came out and started taking shots and saying things like, we're going to overtake WWE within the next 6 months. And they were constantly comparing themselves in a way and kind of talking down WWE. And that kind of, dribbled down into the internet wrestling audience, and everybody took a position. Well, now that things aren't going as well as everybody had hoped they would at the beginning, there's still people that just are going to defend no matter what. Reality doesn't matter. They're going to find something to hang on to and defend because they've staked out their position. They've made themselves known to be this ardent AEW supporter or ardent WWE promoter or fan. So they're going to camp out and they're going to look at all the good things to talk about and they're going to criticize the bad things that the other side does. It's just human nature, man.
And very, very good point, Eric, because it's almost like they were celebrating too early, almost like the cryptocurrency people or the NFT people. At the beginning, they were like, oh, this is great. And now we're seeing it wasn't. You know what I'm saying?
But there are some people, even in crypto, and I know some of them.
Right.
I know one of them very, very well, who are still, and they have the reasons for doing it, camped out on crypto. But I think politics, especially, people are, and I think I see people. I was flying back from Philadelphia this past weekend, and I'm seeing all kinds of people wearing masks,
right,
and not N95 masks, diaper masks, like the ones that everybody has come out and said
over their mouth
work
with their nose hanging out too.
But they're so afraid, and they committed to believing and buying into the fear and buying into the propaganda of that time that they're not reading or learning or accepting any of the information that's out there right now. They're just not going to do it, no matter what's out there.
The dog's a recurring character on the show. They always do run-ins and stuff.
I thought Conan again. He's got up and
my
left.
My dogs are fighting.
Yeah. But that's cool, Eric, because I listen, Conan doesn't really spend a lot of time listening to other stuff, but I always like, you always provide good content on 83 Weeks in the business, and I catch a good clip, of you, and I'm like, and I always tell Joe, let's get Eric on because I want to talk to him about this. Bro, honestly, I think in this whole picture right now of the podcasting stuff thing, I look at you as like, I think you're the smartest guy in the room. Because bro, your track record is very like trends that you've talked about, things that would happen in the future. It's like
yeah, but
nearly
up. Come on, man.
Let me just say, Eric.
Go ahead.
He seems to think. What was that show that you did with Scott Baio, Single and 45 or whatever it was?
Yeah, Scott Baio's 46 or 45 and 6.
Yeah, he thinks you're going to do like a remake with him in it. So that's the reason why he's. Yeah.
I got the hair. I mean, like my hair's getting long.
See, I'm telling you.
Right.